In today's video, I'm going to be telling you how you're going to find your next $1 million SaaS idea. Not all software company ideas are created equal for you as a founder. There is a problem that you are better positioned to solve than 99% of other people out there in the market. And if we just get you to fall in love with solving the right problem that understands your zone of genius, the specific problem you were put here to solve, you will make launching, scaling, and finding success with a software company, a startup, a SaaS product so much easier on yourself. This is a really hard thing to do, and we want to make sure it's easy as possible. Why should you trust me on this? Why should you listen to me? For the last 3 years, I've been running Minimal Viable Launch. We have helped hundreds of first-time, non-technical founders find their perfect idea, launch their software product to solve the right problem that they were put here to solve, and help them scale towards success. Okay, let's dive in. So let's talk a little bit here about how you find your perfect idea. And the key thing I want to tell you is that an idea that works for your competition, an idea that's working in the market already, may be an idea that doesn't work for you. You can't just copy good ideas. You have to look at certain aspects that you possess as a founder to find the ideas that will work for you, because there is something called your zone of genius. Your zone of genius is made up of 4 aspects, which we're going to look at shortly, but your zone of genius is a place that if we can find an idea that overlaps with all parts of your zone of genius, you will find it easier to launch, you will get your first customers sooner, faster, you will have the resources in your possession to get this launched and find success with it. So what is your zone of genius? It is these 4 things here. It is your skills and your interests, your background story and your experiences, your current resources, your connections, and your network. So why is this important? We need to look at your skills and interests, because if we can find a problem to solve where you already have built the skills to solve it, you have a deep understanding of the problem and a deep skill in solving it, or you are endlessly curious about this problem, you have a deep interest in this problem space, so as you work for 16 hours a day to get this thing off of the ground, it doesn't feel draining for you. It puts you into a high state of energy. You feel excited and curious about this problem. You are building an incredibly powerful, unfair advantage into your startup. When everyone else in your space who just kind of is interested in this or is just doing it for the money gets bored, tired, and burnt out, you will still be there putting in the hard work, putting in the hard yards to solve the problem. And in software, really, it is a space where winner takes all. So we want you to, compete in an arena that you can work your hardest in without feeling burnt out. Your background story and your experiences are incredibly important here, because if we look at your career, your education, the things that you've done in your life story, there are moments in time which give you deep insights into an industry, a problem, or a process that other people just don't possess. If you had spent your early youth working in restaurants at all different levels and many different restaurants, you would have seen the problems that happen in those nights when you're serving meals to people. You would see where things break down, where systems could be used in order to improve that process. But I've never worked in a restaurant. And in fact, I was asked to design a restaurant app as one of the first apps I was tasked with designing in my first job as a user experience designer. I had to design a restaurant booking system just from what I thought a restaurant booking system should be, with no context on the problem. And it was an unmitigated disaster because I was trying to solve a problem I had no experience with. So we must look at your background story and experiences, because this gives you an unfair advantage and deep expertise, which you will otherwise have to spend a lot of time and effort and probably money in learning about the process, learning about the industry, learning the nuances that will let you make the innovations that make you wildly successful. We have to look at your connections and your network, okay? Your connections and your network, your closest network, is going to be where your first sales come from. with this idea. If you have spent a long time in an industry that you are trying to solve a problem in, you likely have connections, ex-colleagues, friends who exist in that world who encounter the problem that you want to solve, and they're going to make your first sales easier. You can talk to them about the problem, validate it, do the research, make your first sales. But if you don't have those connections, if you don't have that network that exists in that world, you have to build it. And it is possible to build from scratch. It just means it takes longer before you get to the point of making sales, which means cash flow and income into the business takes longer to get as well. And I think if this is your first swing at the bat of launching a software business, it's better to play in markets where you already have strong connections. And we need to look at your resources, okay? There are some ideas for software businesses that, you know, it's a deep tech product. It's going to take years and years of development before it's ready. That means, again, you're going to be burning cash. Cash flow is going to be limited to none. You're going to be relying on your ability to raise investment to keep the lights on in the business. And again, if you are currently in a space where resources are tight, you're looking to start a business because you want to up the level of income that you've got and have more cash flow coming into your bank accounts, starting a really difficult deep tech startup where you don't have a track record in running software companies is going to be difficult because it's going to be hard to raise investment because it's incredibly risky. So there are ideas that you're going to come up with that you're actually better suited to launching based on these points. And so here is the process that I want you to start going on. We call it here at Minimal Viable Launch problem scouting. This is where you are in the kind of wait and see mode of being a founder. You've made the decision that you want to start a product business. You want to launch a software startup. And now you are in problem scouting mode. You are using your eyes and ears to be on the lookout as much as you can for problems that people encounter. And you're looking for the problems people encounter that repeat, that you see more than one person encountering. And you might see this with your colleagues using spreadsheets to solve a really hard business logic problem, and you think, this takes a lot of time and effort for them to maintain this spreadsheet. Why isn't there a piece of software for this? It might be the things that people want to do in their lives, but they just find really difficult. And again, you hear this story of frustration and pain. And when you hear these, you note these down, you start building up a bank of ideas, and you start running those ideas through these questions. Do I have an interest in solving this problem? Am I curious about it? Do I have skills that make this uniquely easy for me to solve? Okay? Is my background story and experiences, my career, my education, my life story, does it lend me to being someone who is in this space? Do I have connections or a network in this space? And do I have the resources to get an idea like this launched? And if you're a first-time founder, the resources question might be hard to answer, but if you speak to someone who is technical and you have a very detailed description of what you want to build and why, you can start to answer that resources question, okay? But let me give you a story. This is why, or an example, this is why this is important. If I said to you, I'm going to launch a neurosurgery robotics company. It's my first ever software company, and this is where I'm going to target my focus and spend my time and my effort. I would hope that your first question to me would be, Lee, have you ever done brain surgery? Have you ever been in an operating theater? Have you studied medicine? Do you know doctors? Have you ever built a robot? Do you know how to manufacture a robot at scale? For me personally, the answer to every single one of those questions is no. I don't have a degree in medicine. I'm not a doctor. I've never operated on a brain. I've never built a robot, and I've never manufactured a robot at mass scale. I've never been in manufacturing. Everything I've done has always been in software. Okay? So is it that it's impossible for me to be successful launching a neurosurgery robotics company? Absolutely not. But it would mean that I would need to build the expertise, learn the lingo, deepen my understanding, build the network, get people in who actually are neuroscientists, who do know how to build robots. It's just a much more difficult path to launching and scaling a product towards product market fit than some other ideas that I have, the zone of genius is overlapping with that idea. And I just want you to pause, because launching a software business is already really difficult. The failure rate is really high. I'm not going to lie to you. The failure rate is really high. But I think in part the failure rate is really high because people get obsessed with good ideas that they want to launch, that they think should exist in the market. And they don't think about good ideas that they are uniquely positioned to launch, that they have an unfair advantage in, to make this game easier for themselves. And if more people slowed down at the beginning and did that thinking, I think we would have more successful software businesses. Okay, so don't build a robotics company if you don't know how to build robots.